Hop and Vetiver Accidental Anarchists. Chapter 15. I was hoping you wouldn't bring it up. Vetiver crouched down and steered lower until she was speeding just centimeters from the upward slope of the dune. She hovered below its apex, only her head sticking up, and surveyed the courtyard. Tanith Gomez stood in an aisle between rows of aquariums. She kicked at an animal, and it dodged sideways to avoid her foot. "You make my life suck. I wish other people knew what this is like. It's like you're specifically designed to torment me. If there's one of you, it's over. There will be thousands in no time." She kicked again, and the hair wriggled away. "Who let you in? Even if someone let you in, it should take you weeks to cross the instability. Why didn't I know about this? Why does my life have to suck?" Vetiver stepped off her shovel and swung the tool over her shoulder. A direct approach would probably be best. "Hello." "How did you get here? Where were you? Did you bring the... Tanith's black eyes bulged. "I didn't bring the hair," Vetiver said. She wasn't sure that she hadn't, but she didn't want to anger Tanith any more. The woman looked unstable. Oh, this is a mess. The hairs are half the reason I started the psionic revolution. And now they're back. They suck my blood." She chased the white animal around an aquarium. "I'm sorry to hear that." Vetiver felt uneasy watching Tanith, formerly so collected, act so frantic. "Do you think you could release my friends?" "No, of course not. Curses." "Please? I need them to make a feeder." "What are you talking about?" Vetiver slid down the dune and walked closer. Tanith seemed distracted. Maybe Vetiver could hit her on the head with the shovel. But then she might die. But if she died, Hop would be free. "Absolutely not. I won't kill anyone for real." Tanith was explaining what a feeder was. "I can't defend myself. How am I supposed to defend myself from blood eaters when blood is my talent?" "Oh, how about you set that shovel down?" "So I'll set up a feeder. Originally, I planned to let Eatsel and the others go eventually. But now this showed up, and there are bound to be more. So I'll set up a feeder. I'll set one up while I fortify my house and build a wall and..." "Why do you need my friends for a feeder?" "It's easy. You hang a warm-blooded creature from a pole and subdue it. Hares prefer sluggish prey to wiggly, so I'll be safe for a while. They won't eat anything dead, though." "You can't do that. I won't let you. It's a waste of life." "It's not a waste. If I don't seal up my house, they'll eat me." Tanith's face, so serene the first time Vetiver had seen her, was tight with panic. "You know there are plants you can grow that'll keep them away." "You're full of it." "There are. Everyone knows there are." "Where have you been these past 6 years?" "There are the easy-to-grow mild ones, and then the bigger, tougher ones. My uncle was cataloging them. Like Lolium tementulum, Oenthe crocata, Vacanga africana, Exoceria agalocha. You're saying you've never heard of these?" "No." "Can you write those down?" "Only if you release my friends." "No, I need them for feeders, in case the plants don't work." "Of course they'll work. A scientist did experiments, and the evidence says that they keep the hares away." "Well, getting them would probably be hard." "Don't make excuses." Vetiver pushed past her and climbed the front steps. "You messed up 2 dimensions to get rid of the hares. Finding some plants would be easy." Tanith opened her mouth to argue, but the Bavarian hare took the moment of distraction to nip her ankle. Tanith booted the animal away. "Whatever," she said, standing on one leg and clutching her foot. "I'm going to die of anemia anyway." Hop, Cat, and Corbin lay where they'd collapsed senseless in the living room. Vetiver checked Hop's pulse and found it slow but steady. "Okay, now where are you going?" Tanith vanished into the kitchen. "Getting a pen and paper and a Band-Aid, is that okay?" Vetiver didn't answer, and the woman returned to the sitting room with a notepad. "You write down all the plants you know, and I'll take out the blood. Write neatly, and don't misspell." "Of course I won't misspell," Vetiver huffed. She didn't begin writing until she saw a thread of dark blood trickle from underneath Hop's fingernails. He groaned and stirred. It took several minutes for Tanith to extract her blood from each victim. Cat sat up. She looked groggy. "What's going on?" So now what, genius? Tanith asked Vetiver. They'll be too weak to travel for some time, and I want you all out of my house. Immediately. I feel the same way. Corbin struggled to his feet. But it's not really a big deal. You've done a lot of portal craft. It shouldn't be hard for you to send us back to Hysteria Descent. A minion does all my portal work. I'll call him. You stay here and don't move. Tanith left through the door between the sitting room and the kitchen. I hope she's not planning more tortures for us, Kat said. So, Vetiver. Hop crawled up on the couch. Looks like you somehow saved us. Vetiver tried to look like it had been no big deal. Mm-hmm. Hop scooted over to near where she stood and gave her a slap on the back, before collapsing deep into the couch's embrace. I do feel weak. She's right. I'm never going to make it to town like this. Sure don't want to stay here, though, Kat stretched. I hope the portal guy is good. Administrator Gomez? Someone called from the front yard, then coughed. The voice doppled nearer. What can I do for you? Having another problem with... Oh. It took Vetiver a second to place the man standing at the top of the stairs. He wore a tattered poncho and a rag tied around his eyes. Corbin stiffened. Kurogi? What are you... I thought... Kurogi turned his head away. Hey, good to see you. If you can help it, maybe don't tell anyone else I've been helping her. I cannot believe this. Corbin rested his forehead on his knees. I know it looks bad, Kurogi said, but it started out, she wanted me to help her with her anemia, and when I got here she kept asking me to do favors for her, and... His explanation disintegrated into a string of coughs. Tanith re-entered the room. That was fast. Of course it was. It's my job. I only wish you'd told me what I'd be doing, or that these guys would be here. Tanith crossed the room and took the notepad from Vetiver's hands. She glanced over it, then climbed the spiral staircase to the next level, shouting, Okay, you can go. Kurogi, you stay here. I'm going to need you to find some things for me after you send them back. We can go? Hop asked Kurogi. Sounds like it. Hysteria Descent? Yeah. Kurogi knelt down and dipped a bony brown finger through the hemp rug, which rippled, then opened up into a deep scarlet portal. So this is mission accomplished? Hop asked. Don't we need to capture her or something? I doubt she can do much for a while in her current state, Corbin said. Plus, do you feel like taking her down? Let's go back. If she causes more trouble, we'll deal with it. Wait. Kat tipped sideways, grabbing Hop's shoulder for support. Corbin sighed. I was hoping you wouldn't bring this up. I have to. It's rough, but it's probably the best chance she has of getting home. Who are you talking about? Hop asked. Vetiver. We can't return with her when the Assembly will know from your report that we had access to a portal master. Well, just lie then. Or if you have to tell the truth, say, we didn't leave her because we really like her. Have you considered that other people might care about her too? Corbin countered. Like her parents, who legally should be taking care of her? Do you plan for her to stay with you on the wrong side of reality forever? Hop looked across the portal at Vetiver. Well, yeah. What about stability and discipline and school and things like that? You can barely keep yourself out of trouble, Hop. How do you plan to take care of a kid? I've been doing okay so far, haven't I? Haven't I, Vetiver? Of course, Vetiver began, but Corbin cut her off. I hate always being the bad guy. He pitched forward, knocking Hop and Kat off balance. Vetiver caught Hop's startled expression for an instant, then the three of them vanished into the portal. She thought she heard a shocked, angry, "Hey!" echo up before the portal swirled shut and Tanith's rug rematerialized where it had been. Aside from the tipped glasses around the room, Hop, Corbin, and Kat might have never been there. Vetiver stared at the rug. Kurogi shifted his weight from foot to foot. Sorry about this. Yeah, me too. How come life never really has any closure? Listen, it seems like this has been kind of rough on you. How about a deal? What? What now? All Vetiver wanted to do was collapse on Tanith's couch and shut down. You know how once I said anyone could do my job? Well, it's kind of true. With imagination and the right equipment, you could get back to this side whenever. What's the catch? What's the catch? I haven't had much luck with your devices so far. Vetiver stroked her finger across the broken tattoo on her neck and winced. Well, there are always issues with going between sides of reality. Things don't work out all the time, as I'm sure you know by now. I've heard that spending too much time on both sides will mess with your energy and turn you into a social misfit. But if you want to see your friends again, I'll do it. I'll find you a talisman. Kurogi rummaged through his bag, holding out clay figures and tiny salt-preserved creatures. None of them looked right. Instead, Vetiver asked for the cloth tied around his eyes. What? But I'm kind of attached to it. Kurogi hesitated, then untied it and handed it to Vetiver. He was missing both eyes. Here, to use it, envision where you want to go. Then put it on and fall asleep. And remember about the side effects. Be careful. Now, where should I send you home to? Vetiver considered asking for an exotic place. Japan, where she'd been told that thanks to the new automated justice system run on psionic energy, crime was virtually non-existent. They didn't allow immigration. Or the Amazon rainforest, where, aside from giant mutated insects, tribes lived in harmony with the land. Or Tibet? But even as she considered her options, she knew what she had to do. I'd like to go to Audio City, please. Do you know where? Oh, yeah. Easy. That place is drowning in psionic energy. Do you have a certain place in mind? Not really. More like certain people. Can you do that? Sure. That's easy too. Just picture the people's faces and try to remember their psionic energy wavelength. Kurogi swirled his hand counterclockwise over the rug. It took longer to make this portal, probably, Vetiver thought, because this one led to the other side of reality. A strand of silver mist spiraled into being, thickened over the floor, then blossomed into a portal. Go ahead, said Kurogi. Okay, thank you. Vetiver paused. Why are you helping me? You don't have to. People are cruel to each other for no reason. Why not be nice for no reason? Balance things out. Go ahead. Thanks. Vetiver stepped into the portal. She envisioned her mother's smiling pink mouth, her father's mustache, the way they both talked and walked and moved, the way she felt around them. Silver smoke twisted around her. She fell, her stomach flipping and her scalp seeming to float, then slowed and slowed. It felt like she'd stopped. Is it possible to get stuck in a portal? She wondered. Vetiver pictured her parents tucking her in at night. She felt the covers tight around her and a quiet voice saying, Good night, Vetiver. Remember, if you have a bad dream, you can always come sleep in our room. She slammed into the ground. The impact was so great that her feet and ankles burst into tingles of pain, and she almost collapsed. The fog cleared. She stood on Audio City's main street, and two familiar people faced away from her, looking in a shop window. One wore a floral dress and coral ballet flats, and a scarf over her head, because her ears got cold easily. One wore a brown suit with a good hat, because he never felt all the way dressed without a quality hat. Mom! Dad! They turned swiftly as if they'd been expecting the call, and all at once Vetiver was suffocating, because two pairs of arms wrapped around her, and her father was squeezing far too tight, and she could feel her mother's tears dripping into her hair. I'm sorry I abandoned you, Vetiver said. Hop and Vetiver, Accidental Anarchists, Chapter 16. We won't get into trouble. Vetiver drummed her fingernail on her desk. A copy of The Empress of Color lay on the chipped wood beside her, but she had already read it several times. Her parents' friends banned their children from reading it because it was too radical. Tomorrow would be her first day in school, where she would meet nice, normal, non-radical children. They probably wouldn't like her. She had already half decided she didn't like them. Sunlight spilled from a west-facing window above her desk. Her room was bright despite the cold day, and neat as well, aside from the outfit and school supplies scattered over the bed. This would be the first real school Vetiver had ever attended, unless the dojo counted. Her mother had taken her shopping for things she would need, which had been an ordeal because their tastes were largely incompatible. Sharon had allowed her to buy an Audacity poster in exchange for promising to wear a cravat in public to cover up her scarred tattoo. At first she'd insisted on a turtleneck, until Vetiver had explained just how fervently she hated turtlenecks. Vetiver admired the hard-won poster hanging on her door, a print depicting a flock of sparrows attacking a fierce-looking hawk, with the band's logo slashed in scarlet across a cloudy background. Vetiver had found that the cravat actually looked pretty mysterious and cool as well, so she was content. Living with her parents would take some getting used to, though. With her father making political connections all day, and her mother building social bonds most of the time, Vetiver had a lot of freedom for her age. Well, if not freedom, free time at least. "I'm home!" The door slammed downstairs. Vetiver hopped up and hurried from her room. Her parents had given her the attic space, with one window facing the driveway and one facing the frosty field of the water treatment plant. The roof sloped on each side, turning her room into a triangle. Blue carpet covered the floor, but the walls were plain white aside from the poster. "I'll have to buy some paint soon," she thought as she thumped down the stairs. "Where's your mother?" "She's still visiting Miss Simone." Fred hung up his coat on the rack by the front door, then hugged Vetiver and kissed the top of her head. "I guess we'll be eating leftovers then." The house was older, medium-sized, and comfortable, with pretty wallpaper beginning to peel at the corners. Fred and Sharon had bought the place after Fred was nominated to the city council, and it looked like they might stay a while. The furnishings were sparse, but Vetiver hoped that, with her around, the family would spend more time at home together and accumulate accessories to make the house feel more homey. Fred opened his briefcase and spilled important-looking documents across the table. The dining room was loosely separated from the kitchen by a standing counter. Vetiver gathered food from the refrigerator and pantry. "We have some pickles, and graham crackers and milk." She placed the items on the tablecloth, shoving aside some city council documents to make room. She found 2 forks for the pickles and 2 mugs for the milk. After a couple weeks, it felt good to finally know where things were in the kitchen. Her father made a face. He didn't like sour things, but fished out a pickle anyway and crunched on it. He leaned back and held up a file to read while he ate. The serving size was 4 crackers, which Vetiver thought sounded reasonable, until she realized from reading the calorie counts that the dotted lines scored through each rectangle were meant to indicate individual crackers. Ridiculous! She had eaten half the package and was pouring herself a second mug of milk when someone tapped on the door. "Should I get that?" Fred dropped his paper. "No, it's probably someone I work with." He crossed through the sitting room and opened the door. Vetiver heard him say, "We don't want anything." Then someone said something else, and her father called, "Vetiver?" Vetiver wiped her mouth with her sleeve and lurked to the door. Who would be calling for her? Most likely some of her parents' friends' offspring, forced by their elders to come welcome her, the daughter of the prospective mayor. "I wish I had time to change my socks," she thought. Hers had a hole. "But actually, I don't care." Still, she hid behind her father until an almost forgotten voice asked, "Vetiver? Is that you, bud? Nice scarf." "Who? Oh, Molotov. Thanks, it's a cravat." "We're distributing flyers," Molotov explained. "Matahari and I." Matahari's scooter stood by the curb, idling, and Matahari sat on it, stealing wary glances around the high-end neighborhood. She wore the same clothes Vetiver had last seen her in, just more stained and beaten up. She saluted Vetiver. "Would you like to come with us? If that's okay, of course." Molotov switched to addressing Fred. "We won't get into trouble. She'll meet lots of new friends and get to know the community better." "Please, sir?" Well..." Fred looked alarmed. "What are these pamphlets?" He stalled, trying to get himself back together. "Nothing inflammatory, I promise. Look for yourself." Molotov shoved a red, crookedly printed flyer into Fred's hands. "Honey, do you want to go?" "Yes." "And you'll be writing that thing?" "Yes." Fred would have liked to talk this over with Sharon, to sleep on it even. Wear a helmet at least. He did want her to have some friends. She was so quiet, and sometimes she seemed like she lived in her own world. Had he seen this young man before? Vetiver snatched up her bike helmet from the hat rack and ran down the driveway before Fred could change his mind. "We'll take excellent care of her," Molotov assured Fred. "Don't keep her out after dark," Fred shouted as Molotov turned and walked to the motor scooter. "Don't worry about it. We'll bring her back before it's late. I have a 10 o'clock curfew since I'm still on parole." "What? What did you say?" Matahari was already laying a thick black mark down the lane. Her scooter's roar shattered the neighborhood's idyllic silence. "What will the neighbors think?" Fred murmured, stroking his mustache. "What will Sharon think?" Vetiver, Molotov, and Matahari traveled all the way to the city center. They stood on Main Street and shoved red pamphlets at passing pedestrians. Matahari told Vetiver her job was to smile and look friendly. Although she wasn't sure about the latter instruction, Vetiver had no trouble smiling that day. Her face muscles got tired. The three of them stomped their feet to keep warm. Vetiver worked up the courage to run up behind people and slip flyers into their coat pockets, purses, and backpacks, like pickpocketing, reversed. A police officer trolled by and gave them a stern look. A hot dog vendor gave them free food, saying he approved of their work ethic and dedication to their cause. A sleek sedan skidded to a stop near them, and cuff-linked, middle-aged hands flung a dozen eggs at them. Vetiver returned home a bit after sunset, shivering, tired, and covered in slime, but stoked nonetheless. She took a hot shower and, wrapped up in a blanket on the couch, recounted the day's adventures, finishing, "And we gave out every pamphlet, every one." Fred and Sharon exchanged a look. Sharon stroked Vetiver's head. "You could have a fever, or maybe it's just from the hot shower. I hope so." The grown-ups stood in front of the couch, looking at their daughter with confused, concerned expressions for several minutes. A little joy drained out of Vetiver's heart. She realized now they'll ask questions. They'll ask, "How do you know those people? Why did you run away? Where were you all these months? How did you get back? And worst of all, what do you mean someone was talking in your head?" But they didn't. Instead, Sharon brewed Vetiver a mug of rooibos tea with honey and milk, and the family sat in the living room, curled up in blankets. Later, after Vetiver fell asleep, her parents would ask each other, "Where did she meet those people? Do you think she's all right? Should we look into finding her a therapist? A counselor? Will she be okay in school?" Meanwhile, Vetiver slept deep. Before she'd gone to bed, she had wrapped a greasy rag over her eyes, like she did every night. She told her parents to keep the light out so she could sleep better. Epilogue. Dust motes danced before her eyes, and Vetiver focused on them, coming to herself. She stood in her other home, polished wood floor underfoot, solid ringed ceiling just a few feet from her head. She had grown in the past months, but the house seemed to expand to accommodate her. Books surrounded her on spiral shelves, standing straight and neat, bookended by trinkets collected on her many adventures. This was the uppermost room, S through Z. Her home was more of a private library than a traditional house. Vetiver descended through a round hole in the floor, climbing down a rope ladder, and dropped through rooms N through R, H through M, C through G, and A through B. Each chamber had a porthole window and a different sort of comfy chair. Vetiver usually read in the H through M chair. It was a pleasant, faded shade of turquoise and bowl-shaped, so she could sit or sprawl any way she wanted. A violet afghan lay folded next to it in case of rainy days. Today, the sun pierced through heavy silver clouds and greeted Vetiver in every room, reflecting greener on each level. The bottom floor was awash with sparkling light and alive with the sound of rushing water. Vetiver swept her cloak from where it hung over the back of her chair. She fastened the silver clasp around her neck. The cloak was black as a foul mood and swept past the tops of her tall leather boots. It had a hood, but she only put it over her head when she needed to be stealthy. She wore a simple black dress underneath. No cravat here. She wore her shattered blue rose proudly on the back of her neck. Bread and butter and jam sat on the table, as fresh as if she'd set them out minutes ago. Vetiver considered having a bite to eat, but Hop called her name from outside. "Are you in there?" He didn't come in unless he had to. He thought Vetiver's house was top-heavy and liable to collapse at any moment. "Coming." Vetiver grabbed her shovel from beside the door and tested the edge with her thumb. The spade head flashed silver blue in the morning light, and the polished oak handle glowed with warm brown luster. The blade was sharp. Vetiver balanced the weapon on her shoulder and stepped outside, pausing to lock the door behind her. "How's it been?" she asked Hop. "Plenty of trouble to clean up, as always. Hurry, I barely convinced the others to wait for you." Hop gave the house one last mistrustful look and warned, "That place could topple at any time." Vetiver followed his gaze. The tree stretched its gnarled branches so high into the air she had to tip her head back to see the farthest ones. Winking up the trunk were her beloved round windows, perspective shrinking them as they went up. Her stream laughed around the tree's roots on one side, and on the other woody growths writhed up a mossy boulder. "It won't," she replied. "I was careful making it." The surrounding trees were just as knobbly, but none were nearly as tall. A flock of finches sniped back and forth, fluttering from branches to ground. Vetiver noticed a red-orange doe staring from behind a huge rock. Had she been there all this time? At the entrance of the cave, Vetiver paused. It consisted of 2 upright slabs with an ancient bough collapsed across the top. The tree corpse had splintered, and dirt and small plants had accumulated over the top, creating a shallow overhang. It was cool inside. A moldering wooden door was set into one rock wall, and a dark, smelly water stain blossomed around the top hinge. "Hop? What now?" Hop was impatient, as always. "I have to wake up early to attend Father's inaugural speech. My alarm's set for 6, so let's get a move on." The end. Acknowledgments. It would be impossible to list all the people who helped me write this story, but here are a few. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for nurturing my love of reading and putting up with my writing obsession. This extends to my grandparents and other family as well. Thanks for listening to me and giving me suggestions. The people who proofread my book are incredible, and this story would have completely unraveled without them. Thank you, Aunt Jasmine, Aunt Jess, and Jade. Thanks, Mrs. Woods, Mrs. Campbell, Maggie, and Mr. Solar, for telling me I had writing talent. Those kind words inspired me to keep writing, when it would have been easier to quit. Most of all, I thank you, the listener, for clicking on this book and listening to it to the end. You rock. Oh, let's see. Let's add this little part.
This story is a work of fiction. Any references to historical events, real people, or real places are used fictitiously. Other names, characters, places, and events are products of the author's imagination, and any resemblance to actual places or events or persons living or dead is entirely coincidental. Story and production copyright 2018 by CBEPA. All rights reserved, including the right to reproduce this recording or portions thereof in any form whatsoever. For information, contact cbepasblogs@gmail.com.